Welcome back to the Talking Point, people. Of course, this is the show where we look at the biggest talking points from around the world of football. Now, of course, as you can see, joining me today, Samuel, Abasaki, Dougie, Critchley. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good. Excited for this episode. Going into the role of sporting director, we got some suggestions.
Yes, indeed. As you've seen by the title, we're going to be suggesting some players your club needs to be signing in January. One player, in fact, to help some of the problems that are going on. We're not going to be going through all 20 because the video would be very
got that time.
And we'll leave that for a Sunday Vibes. We'll leave that for a Sunday Vibes later on, closer to the window. But we're going to first kick it off with none other than top of the table, league leaders, Arsenal Football Club. Because Sam, where do you think the issue is for them?
They don't actually have an issue, I'll be honest. And it pains me to even be this nice about Arsenal. But genuinely watching them this season, there's been times where they've had a few players out and you've wondered, is this where they're gonna crumble? You know, Jesus has been out, Saliba's been out, Partey's been out, you know, key players to their formation. But they've been all right. Obviously, you wouldn't expect them to win every single game. But I think if they're gonna look to improve for next season, I think a position, and I think a few Arsenal fans will agree with me. I don't know if they do or not, but I think someone that's done really well this season, but they can improve there, is Xhaka. I think that position, he is probably their most improved player under Mikel Arteta. He's obviously done amazing to reinvigorate his career. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I think he's done really well to get to that point. But if they want to kick on, I think someone that is a bit like seeing them linked with Declan Rice, for example, in that position. I'm like, if Declan Rice comes into the team, he would be perfect. Do you know what I mean? And I think that would make their midfield even stronger.
Well, I think Declan Rice is somebody who normally is looked at as this complete destroyer, and actually over the past few seasons we've seen him kind of develop into more like a ball-playing midfielder, someone that actually doesn't mind roaming further up the pitch. And when you've got Thomas Partey in the side as well, he's normally doing a lot of that defensive work. Is that a position for you, Dougie, which you are in agreement with? Do you think it's something they need to look at? I mean, when you are getting into the Champions League football, which next year they are definitely going to be playing, you do need to probably look at other positions or several positions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sam was going to go down the central midfield route. I think it's a very good route to go down. I think Xhaka and Declan Rice are quite different players, and I think it would change their style slightly. Xhaka's a much better passer, Declan Rice much more dynamic. I think he's better defensively as well. But as you say, Champions League next year, I think they need to improve their depth in quite a few areas. And I think one area that people won't really think about is right wing, because Bukayo Saka is just probably been the best right winger in the world this season. Definitely in the Premier League at least. Salah's just been too inconsistent for me. But I think he's just played pretty much, most minutes ever since he breaking through into the team at 19, 20, and it's just going to catch up with him, and he does need to be rotated, particularly if you want him at his best for the Champions League. So a player they could look at is Athletic Club's Nico Williams. He's only 20, really fast, really lively, not quite as polished as Saka, and is actually right-footed, so he'd be an outside, sort of down the line option rather than Saka, who comes in and combines so well with Odegaard. But I think that could be quite exciting, because we've seen when Fabio Vieira has played there at times this year, I think he's looked a little lightweight, and it maybe looks more suited to the middle.
Wouldn't that be a bit of a sudden drop-off? Obviously, I haven't watched Nico Williams week in, week out, but I know you've watched him more than me. But even saying that Saka's the best or one of the best wingers, right wingers in the world, but going from him to Nico Williams when they're going to be challenged for the Premier League and the Champions League, don't you think that they need someone that is just a step up, like a Sane that's not maybe as happy with his situation at Bayern?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, if they could get Sane, I'd definitely do that. I just don't see him going to a side where he's not guaranteed to be the starter, because that's been the issue at Bayern. Nico Williams has broken through to the Spain squad, went to the World Cup. He's been one of the best young players in La Liga this year. And yeah, he's not quite as polished as Saka, but I think he'd be a pretty able backup.
Well, especially brother of Inaki as well.
Exactly.
And that's a position that Arsenal have actually previously looked at when linked to Rafinha, Moussa Diaby, so on and so forth. Well, that is Arsenal ticked, done, sorted. All right, let's move on then to the other title challengers, Manchester City. Of course, very hard to sit here and say Man City need to improve in this position when they obviously have good depth in quite a few positions and quality star-studded players. Now, we started with Sam last time, Dougie, so take the floor, my friend.
Yeah, I think left back's not a bad option to look at. As good as Ake's been, he's not a natural left back. Gomez hasn't. I mean, it's his first season under Pep, so it always takes a little bit of time to adapt. So I think left back's definitely an option. But for me, I'd probably be looking at another midfielder, to be honest. I think De Bruyne's not getting any younger. Gundogan's still, I think, out of contract this summer. It looks like he might it might extend. There's also talk about Barcelona as well, so that'd be an interesting one to follow. And I'm going for a little bit of a wild card. Gavi is still potentially a free agent this summer.
Wow.
And I don't think he wants to leave Barcelona at all. But the fact that he's got the option to play under Pep Guardiola with so many of the previous Barcelona directors, sort of, it kind of feels quite familiar in many ways. And I think Gavi would be an amazing pickup for Man City. I think a few years ago, or at least 18 months ago, he was kind of being undermined by some presenters, Joe Tomlinson, as not as good as Pedri. And I don't know whether he still is, but he's got so much better, and he's got a lot to his game now. He's really aggressive, attacks the box really well. I think he's a very complete all-round player, and he's still so young. And I think if they could make a sneaky bid on a free agent, that'd be an amazing move.
Well, I mean, he's also, supposedly his agents anyway, have been talking with the likes of Chelsea as well recently. I have a slight feeling Jude Bellingham might be ending up in...
If you can get Jude Bellingham, yeah.
I really do. Obviously, he feels like somebody who's going to be on the move this summer, especially with how kind of Dortmund's damper end towards the season, obviously not making it through to the Champions League final, and now kind of looking like Bayern Munich might go all the way for the Bundesliga. I think that the next stage of his career really will be going to play for one of these superstar clubs, and look, playing under Pep Guardiola is something that I think any player, especially the age of Jude Bellingham, will be looking to do. But midfield, I probably tend to agree. Midfield for you, Sam, or do you think elsewhere is somewhere they need to look at?
I think it is a position that they couldn't, I would say, improve, but their midfield is stacked. And the only reason I'm going for a different position is because even if like a Gundogan was to leave, they've still got Bernardo Silva, they've still got Phillips that hasn't really been integrated into the team. Foden can play there as well, and then left back Cancelo, he's just on loan.
Could come back.
He could come back and have a little, tea with Pep and say, have a conversation about how they could improve their relationship. You know what I mean?
After the game tonight.
Exactly. But I think for City, what I've seen of them this season, they've got an amazing striker, they've got amazing wingers, but they're missing that like direct winger. That when things aren't going in their favour and they need someone in an attacking position to just switch the game on its head. I feel like they used to have that with the Sterling and Sane combination, which was just frightening, incredible. I think that's the most goals that they've scored in a season. Like they were that good, and it seemed like when things weren't going in their favour and teams were trying that low block or whatever, they had that winger that even if you haven't got that space in behind, they'll take the ball. And I think Mahrez has done it a few times this season, but he's another player that's getting a bit older. I don't expect him to do it for much longer. Grealish, he can take a player on, but he also likes Grealish does that thing where he gets the ball, he goes down the line and then he cuts in and he literally won't lose the ball, but he can play it all the way back to the centre back. I want a winger that, is jinky in between the fullbacks and the defenders and just making something for yourself. So yeah, I'd say a winger, maybe Sane, tell him to come back, man. Run it back, because he's not happy. He wants, I've heard conversations about, him, something about his family in England. I don't remember what it was specifically, but I know it was something about them travelling here or something along those lines, and he had something in Manchester. I can't remember what it was.
Still
but
owns
yeah,
the house.
Something like that.
Yeah, return home. I mean, there were obviously, it's never going to happen, but there were rumours that Bukayo Saka was being looked at by Man City as well. Definitely not going to happen now. We're very much going to sign that new contract. Okay, City, done. We move on to a few teams that aren't maybe doing as well this season. Tottenham Hotspur have been in the news for a lot of things. Most recently, the VAR game between Brighton.
We're not
talking about that, but we do need to talk about their positions. I think it's kind of a hard one to sit here and go, they need to do this position. We don't know really what manager they're going to have, and whether he's going to be playing through at the back, or whether he's going to be playing four at the back, or whether he needs a double pivot in midfield, or whether Harry Kane leaves in the summer. But right now, they still play three at the back. They defensively aren't amazing. Going forward, they're not necessarily, apart from Harry Kane, obviously ripping teams apart. And the midfield is a little bit non-existent with Bentancur. So, Sam, I've given you every position there, and goalkeeper as well.
Yeah, keeper.
Which one do you think is the top of the list?
I think a centre-back is top of the list. And I mainly say that because I saw, if you get a solid centre-back in, it can transform your team. You saw what happened with Liverpool. Getting Van Dijk in changed their future. Do you know what I mean? And I think they need that signing. And also, Ndombele's still out on loan, right? So they could get a new manager in and be like, oh, you know what? we can integrate you into this side. Not saying that he's been incredible for Spurs or even Napoli, but he did have that quality before he went there. So I'm thinking, okay, with all of these things, if they needed one signing, they were going to spend 90 million on a signing that's going to bang straight away, it would be a centre back, 100%.
You tend to agree?
I do actually. I do. I think it's the first time me and Oba have agreed on a position. I mean, there's loads of ones we could have gone for with Spurs. I think if they do change to a back four, which I don't know how likely that is, given their wing backs can't really play in a back four really, and they've got Dougie coming in as a left wing back as well. I don't think he'd be as good in a back four, so it kind of just completely destroy everything they've been doing in the last few years. But stranger things have happened. But I don't think Eric Dyer is probably good enough in a back four, and I think a nice calm presence alongside Romero would be nice. And I'm going for Joachim Andersen of Crystal Palace. Really do. I'm surprised he's not linked with more top six clubs. Quite achievable, I think, for a club like Spurs, because they're not the biggest fish in that market, in that sort of elite Champions League bracket. So picking one of the best defenders in the lower reaches of the Premier League is probably a good area to go down. Long range distribution. He's very good in the air. He's a brilliant player.
Calm as well. You do mention his calmness. You do see that on the pitch. Him and Mark Gahey both kind of have that quality, and obviously that season
on the ball,
season, his first season at Palace, incredible. This season maybe dropped off.
Not
a little
as good,
bit.
yeah.
That season as well, Fulham was really
awesome, yeah.
Was really impressive. Okay, Spurs as well. Again, look, we're not able to go fully into every single club. That will come on a later episode of Sunday Vibes, I'm sure. But let's move over then to West London.
Ooh.
Talk about Chelsea. And again, I feel like you guys might end up agreeing on the same position here, Dukes. So we spoke a little bit about it on Sunday Vibes. So again, we don't want to probably repeat ourselves too much, but
yeah, I mean, we spoke about it for 55 minutes. So if you want to go check that out, definitely do so. I'm going to try and suggest someone different, but I do think striker's probably the area you guys need to look at. I think João Felix, probably a good idea to say goodbye and thank you very much for your services this summer. I'm interested to hear Oba's thoughts on that in a second. In terms of the striker, it's so difficult. I mean, Victor Osimhen, there was a report today from Florian Plettenberg, I think works for Sky Germany, that Bayern were interested in Osimhen. I think that's an amazing fit if they've got the money for him. But they've never really spent that sort of money on a single player. So I'm going for Chelsea. I still like the Gonzalo Ramos shout, but I don't know whether it's actually worth getting ahead of Rasmus Højlund, the Atalanta sensation as well. He's only 20. Maybe not the sort of calibre or stature of striker that Chelsea really want, but he does look like he's got the raw ingredients of a really good player, but maybe a little expensive and a little bit early because he's only really been shining since January.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you not think it's a little bit risky right now where Chelsea can't score goals to then go and get somebody who's raw and coming into very hostile atmosphere?
I mean, man, we talked about Tony, we talked about Osimhen, we talked about Vlahovic, like Gonzalo Ramos. I feel like I've gone through the striking options, but Højlund, one to watch. I don't think he's quite right for Chelsea this summer.
Okay. Sam, you agree, striker?
Yeah, 100%. I think we just...
Do you like
João
Felix?
Well,
Yeah.
Felix?
I really like João Felix. I just feel like he is suffering from what we've suffered from in the last 2 or 3 seasons of just... We've had players with quality, but it's the end product. And because there's so many of those type of players, you almost just put him automatically in that category. But at the same time, he has been one of the brightest sparks from since he made the move in January.
But if I went to you, he's going to cost Chelsea £100 million to buy him for a 5-year deal, whatever it might be, 8 years, you never know.
Yeah.
Would you spend that?
No, unfortunately not.
What would be your limit?
Like 60, 70. And that's being realistic. If I say 40, 30, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
60, 70, I think that would be fair. But then I would still look at it and be like, we need a striker. The only thing I can say is that the new manager could be like, oh, Lukaku, you're on loan, you might have to come back. But at the same time, I saw a report as well, this was a few weeks back, of if we were to go in for Osimhen, they would look at Lukaku. Obviously, the wages there would be completely different and they would have to sort it out. But Osimhen, we just need a bags man. You know them man that just score goals? Like Harry Kane, Spurs would not, and we know this anyway, but Spurs would not be in a conversation they are in without Harry Kane. Brentford wouldn't be in the conversation that they're in without Tony. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we need that striker that even if your team's not playing well, they can score you a goal to get you a draw. We don't have that. And that's why I feel like it's deep that we've got Felix at this point, because he's not necessarily one of the best creators or one of the best finishers. He's just a great player. And adding him to a striker that is on form, and, you know, the wide men that aren't currently on form but will be on form hopefully in the future, it would be such a beautiful system, but it's just Wrong timing, man.
I think that's your headline. Obba wants Kane.
I mean, I tell you what, he would
I would take him.
He'd solve a lot of problems, that's for sure. Talking about Harry Kane, and brings us nicely, I should say, onto Manchester United. Realistically, it feels like that might be the destination if he was to leave to go there. But Sam, is that the position you think they need to be prioritised?
Yeah, I don't think that they necessarily need like a lot done. I think Manchester United fans, they go on about, you know, the work that Ten Hag has done, and I think it's been incredible.
Miracle.
Like, yeah, lots of miracles. Like,
a miracle of Old Trafford.
He's worked wonders, and he has done well. And I think if we think about all the headlines that there were like 2 or 3 weeks into his job, everyone could say, okay, he's turned it on his head. Like the conversation is completely different. But then when I look at their squad and look at their best starting 11, like it's not that bad. Like if they had a striker, you're talking about a midfield that has
five-time Champions League winner.
5-time Champions League winner. They have wide men with a lot of experience. They have options. They have Rashford, who's on form. Shaw, Varane, Maguire, that can be back up to Martinez as well. They've got two right backs that are different type of right backs as well. Obviously, you can say if one goes, you could strengthen these areas, but it's not like a need. I think they need a striker, like a man that can score 15 to 20 goals confirmed, like nothing else. You don't even have to, because I feel like now a lot of the teams are struggling with, we need a hybrid of a striker that can, you know, score goals, but they can play number 10 or they can play out wide or play CM. No, a lot of these teams these teams just need strikers to bag goals.
Okay, well, there we have it. I mean, also, Christian Eriksen is someone that people have spoken about. Can't really trust him to stay fully fit, possibly. But do you feel striker's probably the one?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of looking at the same areas you've been looking at for a few years at Man United, purely because I actually, you know, their signings last summer proved to be excellent, really. But you're probably looking for a long-term Casemiro replacement. You're probably looking for a long-term Eriksen replacement. Like, they were very short-term in some of those moves. But I think if you look at that overall squad and Weghorst's scoring rate, I actually don't think he's been terrible for Man United. It's easy to laugh at his scoring rate, but the way he's sort of drawn defenders away, made space for others, he's been okay. Still not Man United level, probably long term. So I'd go for a striker as well. I think Harry Kane is the dream, obviously. I think that deal's really, really difficult. I don't think Daniel Levy will be up for selling to a club that, you know, is a point or two ahead of them, maybe even level this season. It's just a bit embarrassing. It's not selling to Man City a few years ago. It's not even selling abroad. It's selling to a club that's on the same level.
He just has to accept it at some point that you're just going to have to do it. You just have to do it. Because they obviously...
He's going to lose £80 million or £100 million.
But he's like, I feel like, not even milked it. He's done well to a certain extent to actually keep him to this point. But at some point you have to say, okay, cool, this is the post-Kane plan. Like, and I don't feel like he's thought about it like that, but you just got to start thinking.
I think there's a lot of stages before that, because they can't, essentially you can't pitch to a manager what you want to do if you can't guarantee Harry Kane's going to be there, and then you can't pitch to Harry Kane what his future's going to be if you don't have the manager there, so on and so forth. There's a lot of moving steps, and again, I'm pretty sure that'll be one of the things we talk about the most in the summer. All right, then finally, Liverpool Football Club, because I know we said it all season. Is it just the midfield piece?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there's an option of potentially looking at a Fabinho, some competition, not necessarily a replacement, but I think he needs to be challenged in that area. Bajcetic's been great this year, but I think you can't really rely on him to play, you know, 30 games a season yet. So potentially a Fabinho direct rival, and then I'd definitely go for one of the midfielders either side. I can't see them getting Jude Bellingham now, to be honest. They're so far off the top four. Gavi, again, this is such an enormous step down from the clubs they're currently at on the basis of this season. I'd go for someone like Kwadwo Kone at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Really interesting player. Tends to be best in front of the ball rather than behind it, so he's not really that defensively minded, but an amazing engine, really great dribbler, and looks really, really exciting. He's been linked with all the top clubs at the moment, and also runs a pretty flair Instagram account as well, which I advise you follow.
Something I heard on the weekend said that I thought was quite interesting was possibly getting a replacement right back. Move Trent further up the pitch and possibly get a replacement right back.
This guy's always chatting anti-Trent stuff.
No. Because I just didn't like the overhype of him being a like all-round right back. He was great going forward, and we can say that going forward he's amazing. But defensively, that's always just been a part of his game that he needs to improve. And this season, I feel like everyone's just jumped on the wagon that we were talking about for time. Do you know what I mean? But I think seeing his role against Arsenal, it was interesting because he was still technically playing right back, but he was obviously playing that like inverted role where he was pushing into midfield, and he was incredible. But at the same time, I still think that he does need competition. So almost also, he might just need someone to learn from. Like, he's so young and he's been Liverpool starting right back for how many seasons now? Like, sometimes people need that kick up. Like, it happened to Luke Shaw. Like, every time they wanted to get another someone else in, he stepped up his game. He's adapted his game to be able to play centre back and learn different things. And for Trent, he's amazing going forward. And that might be a thing of, okay, if we've got another right back, you might get that wish to play midfield where you can, flex a little bit more and not worry about your defensive responsibilities. Like, I think that would be a smart move for Liverpool. Doesn't cost too much. Someone that is similar to like the Gusto, for example, that Chelsea just signed. That he's young, he's willing to learn from someone that is older than him, but also understands that it's going to be a role where you're playing in full competition. So it's not a bad move, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't, sorry, Zach, I didn't mean to interrupt. It doesn't also mean that he, doesn't become first choice anymore. Like, a couple of years they got in Kostas Tsimikas. I think Robertson's game, I know he's been slightly off at his normal standards this year, but I think last year he actually improved on the basis of having a little bit of a rest now and again. Look at someone like Arsenal. They got Ben White and Tomiyasu when he's fit, two very different, right backs as options at right back. I think having strength and depth is so crucial.
100%, especially when you're battling in so many different competitions. I was even just thinking then, if you do move him into midfield, maybe having more of a conservative right back to allow Trent to go forward is the thing that they need to do. Well, there we have it, guys. Let us know what you think of some of those positions, some of those transfers in the comments below. Who would you be bringing in for those clubs? Who's the number one transfer you would be bringing in for those clubs? Get your suggestions in as well for the other clubs, the other 14 clubs in the Premier League in the comments as well for the future Sunday Vibes. We might have a look, we might take, and also give you guys a shout out down there. If you've enjoyed this video, click on screen right now for some more Football Daily content. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.